Good Thursday morning or afternoon, depending on where you are at today, here on a given Thursday in this month of October. For those of you who are watching this as a live stream because either you're retired, time is infinite to you, the world is your oyster, or if you're not retired and perhaps you're playing hooky, right? You're playing hooky. That's okay, right? You know, in most of our lives, we're always multitasking. So if you're watching this as a live stream from your work computer, from a conference room, welcome to you as well. And if you're getting this as an on-demand recording, absolutely a welcome to you. Thank you for sharing your time with me and my special guest today. Just to give you a sneak peek, in this episode of Selling That House, and for those of you who have shared your time with me watching some of my previous episodes, you usually have heard from me and my guests the stories of selling that unique house, selling that difficult home, or generally the process of selling a home, which is a major life event. All of that being said, my special guest today is not going to talk about that so much. He'll touch upon it. And the reason why is because he is in a business where he provides his expertise, his experience, and his life stories to help you when you are facing one of life's major events. And that is planning how to retire, moving to that next chapter of, I want to enjoy all of my sunsets. I don't have to punch a clock. So with all of that said, let's welcome my special guest, Burt, into the conversation today. And like I said, for those of you who are watching today's episode from your conference room because you're playing hooky, I'm going to ask this of you. Let's give Burt a nice warm welcome and applause. Here we go. Yes, all of you playing hooky in the conference room. I love the fact that you're dressed up for corporate business world attire. So love it, love it, love it. So hello, Burt. How are you today?
Hey, Bill. I'm awesome. Thank you. And I hope you're well. Thanks for having me here today.
I am doing very well. Thank you for sharing your time with me. So you heard my intro, right? You as a special guest today, you're going to talk about something that I think impacts all of us, whether it's a direct impact to us or whether we are the adult children of baby boomers going through this pretty big life event, which is I'm done punching the clock. I'm going to retire. How do I get there, et cetera, et cetera? Am I correct?
Oh, yes, sir. And you know, the interesting thing is when you're punching the clock, you know exactly where to go. You know where your desk is. You know where the coffee pot is. And you can go grab that. And you don't have to really think about it because It's something you do all the time. But retirement, the word retire is a terrible word because it means to stop.
Right.
So what you're really not doing is you're stopping work. You're retiring from work. But what you're really doing is transitioning into the next phase of your life. And so what you have to be thinking about is now and when you walked in the coffee room, by the way, you threw the switch on. You even knew where the switch was. But when it comes to retirement planning, a lot of people, they don't know what switch to throw or how many switches do I throw? When do I throw the switch?
Yeah.
And how long do I leave that light on? So there's a lot of stuff that goes on with retirement planning when it's not everyday stuff. I mean, think about it. The first time you learned to tie your shoelaces, that was a real challenge.
That was a real challenge. Let me rewind in time. Before knowing how to tie my shoelaces, Burt, we'll make this part funny. Learning how to use the bathroom and not use the diaper. That was a challenge, right? For some of us as kids.
Well, and everything, riding a bicycle, all these things, or driving a car.
Right.
all of these things were such a challenge when you first did it. You're just frozen in fear, and what you're able to see is this much.
Yeah.
And then what happens is, as you start doing it more, your vision goes out, and all of a sudden it's like, this is no big deal. Hey,
Yeah.
you got the car keys? I want to go down to the store and grab a couple of things.
Yeah. I hear you.
It changes.
Yeah.
And so the thing with retirement, and I was going to talk about this a little bit later, but there are two really important things. The most important thing, and it has nothing to do with your money, your parents. It has nothing to do with your diet or your exercise, but the two most important things for retirement planning, and it's all up here. Do you know what they are?
What?
Okay, well, the first one is rolling with the punches.
Wow, love it.
It's because when we look at centenarians, healthy people over the age of 100, do you know that there are two key components? Thank you for that. Two key components to it, and it has nothing to do with the things I mentioned earlier. It has to do with, one, rolling with the punches, and the next thing is having something that pulls you into your day. Yeah. It's like, I can't wait to do this, whatever it is.
Whatever it is.
And a lot of people, they don't sit down and it's like, okay, well, I'm going to fill my calendar. And it's really easy to do that. But something that I've seen happen, and I know you talked about this, like what are some of the things that can set people back? And that is, if your work was your identity, that was the thing that pulled you into your day.
Right.
So now, if you're not punching the clock anymore, as you were talking about, the problem you're going to have is, what do I do now?
Right.
And you can't wait until you're in that position, because unfortunately, people where that was their identity and they wait, there are a lot of people who die within a year. It's a terrible thing. And, it's because they died up here, that space that took up all that space in their head of, what am I going to do today? I can't wait to go to work.
Yeah.
But if you can't do that anymore, you need something else. You've got to find the things, hobbies, travel, visiting your kids, doing charity work. All these different things have to be mapped out. And once you've started mapping those things out, then you can figure out, how much is it going to cost to do those things? And once you do that, well, it's better to do it ahead of time, of course.
Right.
But if you're at that point where they said, hey, guess what, Bill, I'm sorry, but we have to let you go.
Right.
And you feel like you're too old to go get another job, or you're tired, you don't want to do that. You've got to have a plan for doing these things. And that is going to make all the difference in the world of having a meaningful, wonderful retirement life.
Yeah. So let me ask this question to you, as a financial expert helping your target audience, right? Your target audience is, the baby boomers who are living longer, who have maybe the idea that I want to flip the script. I need a new routine now because I'm not punching the clock. One of the things that I learned about you after we met is, unlike many of your peers who are financial experts, financial advisors, and planners, a lot of them do one of these few things. They either host, these nice dinners to get in front of that audience that we just saw in the movie clip, or they put on in-person seminars or webinars.
Right.
One of the things that I learned about you after we met is, apparently you didn't choose to do it that way. You decided to write a book, right?
Right.
So this book, by the way, let's share your book with the entire audience. All right. Yeah. Your book is called Social Security and the Three Bears by Burt Williamson. So Burt, who were the characters that lead you to lay out all of the chapters in this book, and of course, talk about this topic of retirement? Can you speak to that?
Yes, sir. So I just thought it would be really fun to write a story and try to tie together, make it fun to learn a topic that most people are going, this once in a lifetime decision that you're going to have to make. That once you throw that switch, you only have to throw it once and you're done, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there actually are 2 do-overs for Social Security, but we're not going to get into that. But the thing is, when you're making that decision, you've never thought about it before. All of a sudden, now you're thinking, well, once you're 62, should I take it now? Or 65, should I? And what happens if you're married? What if you get divorced? What if you're a widow or widower? What are those? Well, wait a minute. That's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
So I thought, instead of going through a seminar and having people just have their eyes glaze over, I was like, well, how about if I wrote a short story? And the idea came to me when I was on a date earlier this year, actually. And I was explaining something and I said, you know what I should do? And then because I was trying to explain some things. And so I started using a character, because I used to tell my daughter stories when going to bed at night. And instead of reading to her, she'd say, Dad, just make something up. And so I would make stories up. And that's kind of where this came from. I started making up the story of Social Security and the 3 bears. And so in this case, Mama Bear is the one who's really worried about it because she didn't make as much money. Papa Bear is really stubborn. I can't imagine a man being stubborn, right? So I try to make it as realistic but fun and put in some puns and things. And it's a short story. Okay. So it's a way to learn an important topic and doing it in a fun way. So, I mean, granted, there is some details about Social Security in there, but and I have an ending to the story that I hope is going to motivate millennials, especially, to say, "Hey, wait a minute, I don't like the way this is going. We got to do something about it." So, so I have a little ulterior motive in there, kind of a Jonathan Swift type of thing.
Oh, wow!
So hopefully people will see that, and again, it's a short story. So the first time you go through it, you might hit some bumps and bruises with the details about Social Security. Don't let that stop you. Stick with the story. Stay with the story. Plow through it. You'll probably take 30 minutes, 40 minutes at the most. And as long as you don't get stuck on the details and just read it as a story, I think what you'll find is that it does 2 things. One is, by reading it and then enjoying the story, what will happen is subliminally, you're going to start to get the Social Security message. Okay. And your subconscious is going to be processing all of that information for you. So consciously, you're enjoying the story, which was my intention. Subconsciously, you're learning all the things that are going to help you make a good decision.
Right.
Now, just one more important thing, and that is with Social Security decisions, about 95% of them apply to women mostly. Mm-hmm. Men are like, I'm 65, I'll just take it, or 67. Not to say men are dismissive about it, but women have a lot more choices because they probably didn't work as long. They may not have earned as much money. They may not have socked away as much money. And therefore, their Social Security might not be as much either. So, so what does it look like if they're going to get a spousal benefit? If they what happens if they were divorced or their spouse died? Right. I mean, all of those things are really important for them to put into their head for thinking about how am I going to make this decision? Now, the good news is Mama Bear talks about all this stuff. And there are family members who have been on all sides of the fence. But Papa Bear, they finally find, by the way, a guru, somebody who really knows how to get through to him. All of us men need someone who can do that for us.
That's true. That's true. So Mama Bear is the main actor character. Papa Bear and the others are the supporting cast. Right.
Until you get about a third of the way in, and then Baby Bear.
Bear.
So I have a pun with that too. Baby Bear grows up and becomes very active there's a unique family business. They come up with a great idea for how to do fishing, and you read the story to learn how they do it. It's really kind of cool. I don't know if Bass Pro Shops are going to pick up on or not. But hey, maybe they'll end up, getting the book when it comes out in paperback and put it on the shelves there and sell it too, because it does promote fishing.
All right. So using that backdrop here, a call out, shout out to our social media audience. For those of you who enjoy fishing, if you're the mama bear in your family and you're kind of resonating with what Burt is sharing right now in this episode of Selling That House, please drop a comment on social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, or my YouTube channel. We love to hear from you as to what your thoughts are, and perhaps how it ties back to Burt's book. And by the way, let me bring that up once again. Burt's book is, of course, Social Security and Three Bears. Yep.
And that, just so everyone knows, that's an ebook. You can get it on Amazon. It's a whopping $4.33.
Love it. Yeah. I mean, hey, spend just enough money, not too much, so that, as you flip the script, get to the next chapter, a new routine, you need to watch your dollars, your quarters, and your dimes. Let's now move the conversation to this. Bring it back to your business, right? Helping your target audience with retirement, planning for it, or if they didn't really plan for it, now they've got this abrupt, sudden life event. In your experience, what are some common distractions for retirement planning that face maybe the baby boomers who are still working now, or the Gen Z who eventually will be reaching that phase as well? What are some common distractions?
Well, the distractions turn into fears, as you know, because what happens is we let things get into our head, and the things we fear the most frequently never materialize.
True.
And the only thing they did was make us sick.
Yeah.
And so one of the most important things is don't be afraid of it. When you start to take action towards anything, what happens is you start to release that energy that dissipates any fear just by getting in motion. Start writing things down. Start to write down, what are your goals? What are you planning to do with regard to your lifestyle? Do you want to stay in your home? Are you thinking about traveling? Mm-hmm. Do you want to move to a college facility, or college town rather, or thinking about moving to Costa Rica because of the health coverage? I mean, people talk about these things, but the other thing that happens is they go and they try these things, and they decide it's not for me. Okay. So one of the things that's really important is test the new ideas for your retirement, because if it's something you've never done before, or you're going somewhere you've never lived before, you've got to try it out. Just thinking about it, all of these, those are the distractions. Those are the things that can keep you from moving forward, from saying, hey, I'm ready to retire. I'm going to turn in my paperwork tomorrow. Okay. But the number one thing, and just so you know, Bill, I have done well over 2,000 financial plans in my career. Wow. And there is one number that and it's different for everyone. That's a really important number to know. Okay. And that is, how much money can you spend after paying taxes and all that stuff? How much money can you spend every year going forward? Yeah. Disposable income in a way. And most people don't know what that is. Because they forget about, I have home improvements to do, or I also gift money to my Aunt Jane or Josephine, or when you're doing those things on a regular basis, those are part of your spending too. But the fact is, if you only do it once a year or every 2 or 3 years, you're not factoring that into how much money you're going to spend. Okay. So you ready for, I'm going to give you a quick way to know how much money, and this helps with people doing their mortgages and whatever, is how much can I spend is look at the last 12 months of your bank statements. Okay. Look at the withdrawal number. Okay. And then look at your credit card statements. Have they been going up or down? And if not, you don't have to look at those. Okay. If the balance from this month, this year to the same month last year is the same, don't worry about it.
Okay.
What you want to look at is your withdrawal number in your checking account.
Okay.
And compare that to how much money you have coming in.
Got it.
It's very simple. And if you look at what are you taking home from your paycheck or from your business, and just match those two numbers up and see which one's higher or lower.
Yeah.
Because that's where the rubber meets the road. If you try to get in and do a detailed budget, I mean, how often have you seen people do a detailed budget and they miss a thing or three?
Yeah, well, they either make the wrong assumptions, or they make it overly complicated, or like you touched upon, they don't do it because of the fear.
Right. But if you can do it in like the technique I just mentioned, you can do that in a half an hour.
True. And most banks these days allow you online to kind of filter how much money you're consistently withdrawing over that 12-month period.
Sure.
Against deposits of money. So that should make it somewhat easier.
Yeah. But having some technique that you use, whether you go to some online, but some people don't like to do things online, print out your statements, then do it yourself. But it's really easy to do. And one of the things that does is it frees up space in your head. Yeah. Because now you can focus on other things. How many times you have an important task? It's hanging over your head. I got to get this done. I got to get this done. And everything else waits because that one thing is haunting you.
That's human nature. And just to kind of summarize what you shared with us, the common distractions, don't procrastinate, eat the frog, do it today, right? That's important because time doesn't wait for anyone.
Right.
And then what I've heard you share with our audience is test your ideas, test what that new routine, that retirement life is going to look like. So if someone is kind of saying to you and me, I want to retire in Costa Rica, what you're saying is go there for a short trip, see if you like it enough before you fully flip the switch and commit to it.
Right. Because you want to go try everything, buy groceries, find a doctor, send a letter to someone you know and love, or a postcard or something.
Right.
Find a movie theater. What are the things you do here now? Sure. And because those are things you're probably going to continue doing down there. Find a dry cleaner. Do they have them?
Do they have them?
You might not need one down there. It might just be, you put on your beads around your neck and a cool shirt and off you go.
Yeah, the shorts and t-shirts. The weather you and I did enjoy about a month and more ago, right?
Yeah.
In the spirit of our episode, Selling That House, here's my next question and my last question to you.
Okay.
For those baby boomers, your audience, your target audience, your target clients, and in a way, mine as well, what is your words of wisdom, your advice to them about their real estate property, whether it be just one property, their primary home, or if they've got a small collection of real estate properties? Can you kind of share your wisdom on that topic for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things, I grew up in an affluent community, and even with that, a lot of people don't think about growing old in their home. Mm-hmm. They don't think about managing properties when they're 85. They don't think about having to go up and down the stairs.
Right.
There are a lot of, and if you have a curved staircase or beautiful or multi-level staircase, putting in a chairlift might not be all that easy.
That's right.
You might think about putting in an elevator if possible, but you have to be thinking about how you're going to get around when you're 85. Okay. And a lot of people, they're thinking, well, I'm not going to be around at that point. But the people who are, Mickey Mantle said it one time. He said, joking, he was half joking. He said, if I knew I was going to live this long, I would have taken better care of myself.
Yeah. And
it's not necessarily that you need to take better care of yourself, but you have to think about the fact that things happen. Breaking a bone when you're 83 is a lot different than breaking a bone when you're 43.
Right, right.
my mother had pneumonia in her 90s, and the doctor said, "Hey, look, people in their 20s bounce back in a month or two. People in their 60s could be a couple of months, but we don't have much data for people in their 90s." My mother had a great answer. She said, "I'm going to give you some new data."
From her perspective.
Yeah.
What you touched upon is so correct, because fast forward to current times, the baby boomer demographics is the demographic that holds the largest amount of wealth, both in money wealth, but also equity and real estate property or properties. And I've seen a lot of them over the recent 2 to 3 years really attempt to plan and make that shift from how they've lived to how they need to or want to live going forward. Some have downsized, right? Or right size. That's a better word, I think. Some have intentionally moved from a cold weather climate like yours and mine to one where they never see that. May not be Costa Rica, but they're a much more southern latitude. And then I've seen this as well, Burt, which is multi-generational housing. Can you speak to that last part? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, we are seeing a lot more of that today with baby boomers, because look at my parents. They didn't move in with their parents and then have their kids also having 3 generations in one house, but that is much more common today. Where you're seeing not necessarily the parents moving in with them, but certainly the kids moving back in. That happens a lot. And I don't think that that's a bad thing, because your kids could end up cleaning the gutters or cutting the lawn, and they could end up adding some value and simply being around. Whereas if you have people come in and do that stuff, they might not ever come in the house. They might not ever. Maybe you have somebody who cleans your house once a week or twice a month or however often that might be. But having someone who can see you as you're aging, or a couple, but as being able to pay attention and see things, because you can see a lot from day to day, and notice when something's going downhill or something you need to talk about. A big part of that, though, if you're talking about multi-generational families living in the same home, is you have to talk. You can't ignore things or just hope that it's going to get better or go away. So you have to work out things about making meals. Who's going to have time to prep food in the kitchen? Do you look at, there's one person who kind of dominates being in the kitchen all the time, and they take up more room in the refrigerator. So you kind of have to think about mapping these things out, making rules for them. Or perhaps putting another refrigerator in the garage if you have room for it. Not leaving things in the laundry or dishes in the sink. And so it's a matter of, and it's respect for one another, of course. But unless you talk about these things, and it could just build up.
And you don't want that when you are in a multi-generational household, because you open effective communication becomes vital to everyone's sanity. So Burt, thank you for sharing.
One more thing on that, and that's where perhaps having a multi-family house can work real well. So if you have 3 generations, you have 3 different homes. Maybe they're all attached to each other, but you're not sharing the washing machine, the kitchen, and the shower. True.
So here where I live in the greater Chicago metropolitan area, there are some multi-generational properties where there is a main house, a coach house, where it's on the same property, but it's at least, somewhat intentional, separated by 50 yards, 100 yards, or whatever the case is, right? So great points that you have shared with all of our listeners, watchers, and our joint audience today. Burt, thank you for sharing your time. As we wrap up today's episode of Selling That House, For those of you who've enjoyed this content today, and if you know someone who has a unique story just like Burt's and a unique career experience just like Burt's, reach out to me. How can you do so? Simply scan the QR code that you see here. You will then be able to get in touch with me. I would love to meet you and to learn what your unicorn story and your skills are that can benefit our greater audience. So as we call it a day, call it an end to our episode, let me ask my music posse to play us out. Here we go, everyone.